So Damsel is Netflix's latest movie starring Millie Bobby Brown and Robin Wright. And in it, Millie Bobby Brown plays Elodie, who will go on to be a princess, and she kind of comes from this poorer village in the kingdom. Because she's from one of the poorer villages in the kingdom, she goes on to have an arranged marriage made for her by her father, and she should go on to marry this guy named Henry, who's a rich prince from this royal family overseas. Now, understandably, her and her sister are not really too excited about this whole prospect, but it's kind of just a means to an end. It's something they have to do. And the main character, Elodie, definitely has a little bit of a problem with the fact that she's going to go on to marry a stranger. She wants to be compatible with the person she marries. And when you do get overseas and the marriage is finally arranged, they give you a little bit of a backstory about a couple centuries ago. And it shows you when you go to find out that these members of the royal family basically messed with this dragon in his lair, destroyed some of its eggs. Now the dragon's pretty much pissed off. Because the dragon's pissed off, it basically demands that the royal family sacrifice 3 daughters every year, otherwise the dragon will destroy the kingdom. So the wedding goes on to happen. The royal family basically needs to make sacrifices, and poor Elodie's going to be the sacrifice. They throw her into a hole, and she ends up in the dragon's lair, left for dead. And so our adventure begins, my lady. Now, starting off with some of the biggest positives of this movie, obviously, Millie Bobby Brown's pretty great in this role. I mean, she was great in the Stranger Things, no exception here. And she's asked to do a lot because the whole movie basically takes place in front of a green screen because there's a lot of dragon scenes, there's a lot of caves. And it really is pretty impressive that she's able to do such a good job while being the only person on camera for the vast majority of this movie, probably about 80% of it. Pretty nice to see Robin Wright in something since House of Cards. I mean, she's playing the same role she always plays. And with that, can we just have an honorable mention for how good of a role Robin Wright does when it comes to playing that like snarky bitch who's like condescending, because she does it in this movie. And again, as funny as it was in House of Cards, absolutely knocks it out of the park. She's just the ultimately perfect typecast for the role she plays in being the snarky queen from the royal family. When this movie does get rolling, it definitely has like a strong independent woman, doesn't need a man vibe to the entire thing, which hits in some places, misses in a lot, honestly. Because obviously, even in how they marketed this movie, how it's a damsel in distress that doesn't need to be saved, they really do just lean in heavily to the idea that, the princess doesn't need to be saved in this tale, and she's able to figure out all the problems on her own. So much so, even to a fault, there's some scenes early in this movie where they're trying to establish that she's like a strong, independent woman, and she's like different than a lot of the princesses in these movies, and it actually comes off a little bit condescending. There's this scene specifically where she's walking through the garden with Prince Henry, and she's kind of talking to him, trying to get to know him a little bit. They're going to get married. And it's pretty funny because during the conversation, he asked her, he's like, what do you want to learn about me? We're going to get married. Let's learn a bit about each other. And she says to him, why are you so disinterested in me? And that she's trying to kind of like get to know the person she's being guilted into marrying. And he's kind of off put by this. He's kind of like, whoa, that's a little strong. We just met each other. And then she goes on to say that honestly, her own happiness is just a small price to pay for the fact that her village will be provided for with all the wealth from the royal family. And to me, it was kind of like, geesh, like coming off a little strong there, huh? Like, talk about being a little antagonistic. You just met the person you're going to be marrying. I understood a little bit if Henry wanted to toss her off a bridge into the pit. Honestly, that seemed like it's something I didn't want to deal with. But honestly, where this movie really excels is the cinematography and the visuals. I thought they were pretty badass. When you're out and about in the world and it's nice and bright out, you have like these trees flourishing, you have this big Game of Thrones aesthetic. When it's nighttime, you have like shadows, mist coming in, you have the dragon's lair. I thought it all worked. And going off of the cinematography, the aesthetic of the cave they choose to go for when she's down in the cave where you spend the majority of the movie, I thought was pretty cool as well. All the nerds out there, it's kind of got like this little Seath the Scaleless vibe going on from Dark Souls 1, where you got like ice crystals all over the ceiling. You got a bunch of like mirror-like reflections going on. I just thought the world they were trying to build, like the big royal kingdom in the cave, is actually pretty cool. So I was into that part of it. When you do actually get into the cave, that's where the fun of the movie starts to pick up. You get this good little cat and mouse thing going around with the dragons trying to find her in the cave. It's like Bruce Willis in the middle of Die Hard, the Nakatomi Plaza building. But the one weird thing about when they have the little chase between her and the dragons, that they chose to make the dragon talk, which I wasn't necessarily opposed to, because it was fine at the beginning, but the dragon just legitimately did not shut up. I mean, the dragon just rambled on and on and on. So much so that the dragon just kept rambling on about things like that they're both meant to die alone and saying these weird metaphors. I felt like I was watching a BetterHelp commercial after a while. And I know, it's a PG-13 movie, but the dragon really does just play around way too much with the main character. Because they kind of act like it's impossible to get out of this cave, like this has been a big thing for a long time, and like she just has no problem kind of just waddling around in the cave for about an hour of screen time, and the dragon's almost never to be found. But honestly, all that aside, where this movie actually falters the most, if you're going to get critical about it, is that it just tonally doesn't make any sense at all. Because you kind of have characters and writing that's supposed to depict like modern times behaviors and the role of like genders and feminism and stuff, but it's just not historically accurate at all. Because the way they've written the characters, obviously they're trying to make a big deal out of the fact that like arranged marriages would kind of suck and it would stink to not be able to be independent, but it's the medieval times. It would have sucked for everybody. Because who doesn't love a good war and famine? But my favorite moment to kind of poke fun at this is the fact that the main character kind of sympathizes with the dragon when they kind of reveal the backstory that her eggs were tampered with back in the day. But it's like, how are we supposed to be sympathetic to the dragon? I mean, we can't just have like 5 fire-breathing dragons flying around at the same time, ruining kingdoms. I mean, like, come on, let's be realistic now. Maybe a close second when she's just about to beat the dragon, and the dragon says, just end it already. And Elodie, the main character, basically says she's not going to do it because at this point, she's not going to listen to what she's told anymore. It's like, we're really going to do this? Come on. I just found it so fitting when the dragon says you can't run from the dragon and that the story's going to end the same every time, no matter what. And it's like, yeah, the story does end the same every single time. I mean, this is the 10th time we've seen this movie. So yeah, you know how this movie's going to play out. It's not that serious of a movie. It's a PG-13 movie. It's a Netflix exclusive. You know what you're getting. Is it the best movie ever? No. Is it the worst movie ever? No. I mean, could you do worse in this movie? Hell yeah, you could do worse in this movie, and you probably have. But yeah, I would say this movie's completely It's like completely average. It's just a typical Netflix exclusive where they spent way too much money on the CGI budget and not enough on the plot. But you know, it entertained you for about an hour and a half. So if any of you guys seen this movie Damsel, if you have, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you see and you want to see more, feel free to like and subscribe, comment. There's going to be more videos to go. As always, guys, take care, stay safe, have a good night.